Welcome back to the Game Collection. I am SuperDerek, and this is Mystical Ninja Starring Goemon. This game is nuts. This game, first and foremost, is just completely insane. Like, Japanese insane, which is the best kind of insane. But since it was released on the Nintendo 64 back in 1998, Nintendo of America's strict content guidelines at the time cleaned up some of the obligatory pervy jokes. But otherwise, I really appreciate the localization on this game. Back when this game came out, Sailor Moon's localization was calling rice balls donuts, and other similar localizations aimed at concealing our cultural differences rather than embracing them. But upon its release, Mystical Ninja gave me my first real glimpse at pure, unapologetic Japanese culture. Up to this point, the most Japanese culture I got was from Speed Racer and the early Bandai localizations of Dragonball Z. I actually picked up the game for the first time because I thought Goemon on the cover looked sorta like Goku. Yeah, it was a stretch, but coincidentally, the game actually has a gag which nods to the Dragon Ball series later in the game, when Goemon is able to perform a power-up move which doubles his strength and turns his hair golden. But gags and parodies like these are to be expected while playing through the games of the Mystical Ninja series. It's a very self-aware game that can't take itself too seriously for more than a couple of seconds at a time. Goemon and gang are presumably adventuring around feudal Japan, but conversations with the locals often break the fourth wall with self-referential humor and anachronisms like talking about giant robots, magazines, telephones, and pizza. This brand of humor really makes for a very charming game. In Mystical Ninja, the Peach Shogun Gang are transforming Japan into Western-style art theaters with a giant peach-shaped UFO, and it's up to Goemon and gang to change Japan back to normal. This adventure takes them to several towns throughout the whole of Japan, fighting enemies and solving puzzles along the way, platforming your way through castles, caves, and open countryside, on land, underwater, and even in the sky. Combat within the game is a pretty straightforward endeavor, and for the most part it's actually pretty easy and satisfying. All basic enemies in the game can be taken out with just a few hits. However, a targeting system would have been beneficial. But Mystical Ninja came out before Ocarina of Time, which was the trendsetter for that sort of feature on the Nintendo 64. But what the game needs more than a targeting system is a way to directly control the game's camera. The camera system in place will automatically center on the back of a player after a few seconds of inactivity, but sometimes being still isn't an option during combat, and during platforming segments, it can make for some very tedious moments. These platforming elements are mostly limited to dungeons though, which are cleverly designed and get progressively longer and more intricate as the game goes on. Each dungeon has its own decidedly Japanese theme, such as a hot springs bathhouse or a sushi restaurant. The only slight flaw with these dungeons, though, is that all of the more difficult puzzles within the game are spelled out to the player in signs at the entrance to the rooms featuring those puzzles. And now that I think about it, maybe that was intentional, because at any point in the game, you can go to a fortune teller who can point you in the next direction you should take. And at one point in the game, you're even told to go to a fortune teller just to find out what to do next. So maybe the game designers didn't really want the difficulty of the puzzles to keep anyone from enjoying the game. With that in mind, this game's puzzles are really only as hard as you make them. In fact, you might want to opt to take the difficult road and not read the signs, since this game really is only 15 hours long at most for your first time through. Because the game is 15 hours long, I'm going to recommend that you pick up a save pack. Unfortunately, this game didn't come with the built-in save feature like Ocarina of Time. As a result, when I was a kid and played through the game for my first time, I had to stay up all night on a weekend just to get through it. and while you can sit down and play through it all in one sitting, I don't necessarily recommend it. Slow down, savor the game, let it linger. And what would a review of Mystical Ninja be without talking about the giant robot battles? There's 3 in the game where you take control over Impact, a sentient robot who's also a movie star in the United States. He's even got his own awesome theme song, complete with random English exclamations. The battles take place from the perspective of the cockpit. The HUD of the game is replaced by the pilot's dials and displays. Combat is tricky, but with experience you can get the hang of it, and pulling off combos feels really satisfying. And it's such a nice little addition to the game. It's so random, but because of that randomness, it just fits so well. And graphically, Mystical Ninja is a really nice looking game, especially when you consider the fact that it's coming from a third-party developer on the Nintendo 64 on the early side of the system's lifespan. It came out between Mario 64 and Ocarina of Time. While I don't think it's quite as polished as either of those games, I think it still holds up pretty well on its own. There are some camera issues, but if you're a forgiving player, it won't spoil the experience for you. The music in this game is just beautiful. Take a listen for yourself. The music is just catchy, and it'll embed itself into your brain with time. Playing back through the game after 5 years or more, and all the music is just immediately recognizable to me, and I can finish the melody after just hearing a few notes. That's how long this music will stick with you, and it's not just memorable, it's really good too, so that's even better, right? Mystical Ninja has not yet been digitally re-released on any modern consoles, so getting a copy for the Nintendo 64 is pretty much your only option at this point. The series is still going strong in Japan, but in the States, we haven't seen a release since 1999. Mystical Ninja is a little harder to find out in the wild, because only about 55,000 copies were sold in the United States. It's also sought after by collectors and has a 55% rarity rating according to rarityguide.com. Its price is currently fluctuating between $18 and $28, but usually on the higher side of that range. Mystical Ninja is definitely a game I would recommend to anybody looking to get a little more fun or diversity out of their Nintendo 64. It's a really short game, unfortunately, but if you can get a good deal on it, I would jump on it because this game rocks, and that's why it's got a spot in the game collection. What? You want some more? Okay, well, you could check out one of these videos. They're kinda cool. Oh, and since you're already clicking on stuff anyway, maybe you should click on this button. You know, since you're checking out my new videos anyway, right?